All right, Peter Navarro, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
It's great to be with you, Brian.
Hey, first, I know that you want to talk about the president's tariffs and trade, manufacturing. I do want to provide you that opportunity, and also give you a chance to provide some context to report just yesterday. But it's a phenomenon that's been happening for a while here. That in Southeast Michigan, that there's been a lot of steel workers, massive layoffs. 1,500 this year alone of jobs expected to be lost in that industry, including an e-course. Can you give us some context to why, considering that it sounds like the White House says that the tariffs have been a success, and that's directly connected to the steel industry?
Well, the tariffs have nothing to do with any layoffs of American workers. Absolutely nothing. The tariffs that the president put on in this administration have attracted literally billions of dollars of new investment in the steel industry. As late as just 2 weeks ago, the CMC announced in Mesa, Arizona, a beautiful new investment. I think it's close to $1 billion in a plant that's going to make rebar. And I've seen that their technology. It's advanced technology. They had a plant in Durant, Oklahoma, which I actually visited. The factory itself is like a fourth of a mile long straight line where they put in recycled steel at the beginning and come out the end with rebar at the other end without having to cool and heat. So it's tremendously cost effective.
But Peter, then why are these jobs being lost?
Hang on. We feel very strongly that the tariffs are the only thing that saved the industry from obliteration by foreign dumpers. What we have now very clearly is an economic downturn that we're bouncing back from. But everybody in Michigan needs to understand something very, very quite simple here. The Chinese Communist Party came here to the White House on January 15th to sign a trade deal. What they did not do when they came is tell us that the Chinese Communist Party was about to unleash a global pandemic with a virus that had human-to-human transmission. And so a lot of the pain and suffering Americans are enduring right now, including the loss of over 170,000 Americans, can be traced directly to the door of the Chinese Communist Party. What we are doing as an administration is fighting that war on many fronts. We're fighting the economic war by doing things like the PPP plan, rebate checks that we had mailed out, and other things. But it's a war, and it's going to be a difficult struggle. On the pandemic front, I know the Democratic Party is trying to blame this president. That seems to be their whole platform. It's like they don't want to tell you about their $4 trillion tax hike or putting more regulations on farmers and ranchers and fishermen, or doing bad trade deals or capping all our oil wells. They're making a really big bet on, blame the president. Well, the only president that should be blamed for the loss of 170,000 American lives is the unelected president of China. So the steel industry is going to be great once we get everything ramped back up. The tariffs are the best defense against dumpers like China that were killing our industry, and we couldn't be happier and prouder with that tariff strategy. But we also understand right now that we're suffering from the hands of the Chinese Communist Party pandemic.
A lot to unpack there, but for the sake of time, I want to move to the pandemic. There's the new CDC guidelines that seem to run counter to some common sense that we've been told about this virus, that if you're exposed to a potential positive, now the guideline is you don't need to be tested, and reports are out that this guidance came from the top of the administration. So does this in any way slow the spread and help us get this virus under control?
I think that the best thing I can do, since that's not my lane or expertise, is just tell you more broadly what our strategy is to defeat the China virus. And it's basically a 4-vector attack. The first vector is basically taking the domestic manufacturer of personal protective equipment like masks and goggles and gloves, things like that, along with things like ventilators, which we make right there in Rawsonville, Michigan. And we've really done a fantastic job. We've become the ventilator king. No person in America who needs a ventilator has gone without one. The second thing on the testing front is we've dramatically increased our testing capabilities, but more importantly, we are innovating. And the best thing that's going to happen, we're going to get that to market soon, is a point of care type, pregnancy type test that will deliver results immediately, and we've set that in motion. These things take time in order to get production moving, but we feel very good about testing. The third vector of attack is the therapeutics. These are things like remdesivir and most recently convalescent plasma. We're seeing a dramatic decline in the mortality rate because of the way we're able to get more PPE and therapeutics into our hospitals, and we like that a lot. And finally, the vaccine development. This is, I'm a witness to history here. And going back in February, right after the president pulled down the flights from China in that courageous act that Joe Biden called xenophobic and racist, but what saved hundreds of thousands of lives, we began as early as early February setting up this 5 or 6 company horse race to get a vaccine. The most important thing about getting a vaccine to the American people is not just developing the vaccine itself, but having the mass manufacturing capabilities to deliver it on time. And it looks like we may be able to deliver that by the holidays or January 2021. And that would be in a third of the time that it historically has taken. So that's the best thing I can do in terms of informing your viewers about how we're trying to defeat the China virus. But let's always remember where that virus came from.
Peter, last thing I have for you, regarding the RNC, we're coming up on the final night with the president talking tonight. There's been a lot of conversation in the last handful of days about sitting officials engaging in partisan politics, seemingly in violation of the Hatch Act, depending on where they were giving their speeches from. Is there any concern there?
No. And by the way, my favorite speech of the night last night, besides, of course, the vice president and brave men like Keith Kellogg, was Clarence Henderson. I thought he spoke just so eloquently about his African American experience and why he believes it's the Republican Party that will deliver the kind of economic prosperity and law and order that we need in order to advance as a society. So expect a great night tonight. Well, I've watched in real time the building of the stage on the South Lawn over the last 10 days, and you're going to see a blockbuster speech from the president and a great show that, unlike the Democratic convention show, there'll actually be real policy behind it. We stand for peace, prosperity, and law and order, and the policies we have for peace include an end to endless war, for prosperity, the tax cuts, deregulation, good trade deals, unleashing of our energy sector, and national security and neighborhood safety. Is like there's a thin blue line. There's a thin blue line between peaceful protest and anarchy and looting. And what we've seen is Democratic officials throughout this country, mayors in particular, cross that blue line repeatedly with disastrous results. We do not cross that thin blue line. We support the police. We do not support defunding the police.
Peter Navarro, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.